The prodigal son was back. Isabel Ross's long-lost love had returned, and he was here to kick me, the impostor, to the curb. That night, I packed my bags and fled. The contract was written in black and white. The term served into my brain. Upon the return of the principal party, the standings role is terminated. I sold and forward the breach of contract penalty. But I barely stepped out of the plane. My feet not yet steady on foreign soil, when a group of men in black suits politely invited me into a blacked-out Cadillac Escalade. The moment the heavy door clicked shut, I saw her. Isabel Rouse. She was just as I remembered. Devastatingly beautiful with an icy compass that could freeze hell over. Her custom-tailored black suit traced the sharp, elegant lines of her body, and she radiated an unapproachable power that was her signature. But the inferno I'd never seen before was blazing in her pointy, fleeky eyes, which were usually as calm as a frozen lake. "Leah," she said, her voice quiet, but as cold as steel. "Who gave you permission to run?" I raised my hands in a gesture of innocent surrender. "Me. Rouse during craft is back. Our contract is automatically terminated. I was just trying to get out of your way. You know, proactively rowing myself out of the picture. Rowing years throughout." A chilling smile touched her lips. She picked up a coil of rope from the seat beside her and with practice efficiency began binding my wrist to the grab handle in front of me. Her fingers were cool against my skin, sending an involuntary shiver through me. I was stunned. "Miss Rouse, what are you doing?" "This is kidnapping. It's a felony." Isabel ignored my protest, her hands moving with a practiced grace as if she tied these knots 8,000 times. She leaned in close, her warm breath gusting over my ear, but her tone was terrifyingly grim. "I'm going to give you one more chance. Go back to Chicago. Continue being Julian or else." She paused, her gaze drifting slowly down to my legs. "I will break term and make sure you never walk out of the city again." And my mind went completely blank. This woman, this titan of industry who stood at the apex of the corporate world, who never betrayed an ounce of emotion, was acting like a mad woman trying to drag me back beyond fires. Her perfect idealized love, the man should mount 4 patches, the man should paid me a fortune to impersonate. During craft was back. Shouldn't she be running to him? Object, shouldn't she be cutting all ties with me, the counterfeit with surgical precision? WHY. WHY was she tying me up, staring at me with eyes one reserved for a treacherous love. The Escalade made a smooth, silent U-turn, heading back towards the airport's private terminal. My brain was a chaotic mess. My entanglement with Isabel Rouse began with an absurd contract. A year ago, my younger sister, Mia, was diagnosed with leukemia. She needed a bone marrow transplant and a mountain of cash for the treatments. Just when it hit rock bottom, Isabella's executive assistant, Sarah Jenkins, found me. She presented me with a contract and a photograph of Julian Craft. The man in the picture shared my features with an unnerving 90% of similarity. The contract was simple. I, Leah Vance, would play the role of Julian Craft, becoming Isabel Ross's nominal fiancé for 1 year. The compensation was $3 million. If the real Julian returned early, the contract would terminate and I would receive a prorated payment. And my job was to mimic everything about Julian, which is mannerism there, which is style of dress, which is habits, even the precise curve of which is signature. Isabel gave me a tick binder, a veritable Bible on the life of Julian Craft, which she had compiled herself. From IT, I learned that Julian was Isabella's childhood sweetheart. The man her grandfather, the formidable patriarch Mark Rouse, had personally chosen to be her husband. 5 years ago, Julian had disappeared during a mountaineering expedition in the Himalayas. He was declared legally dead, but neither Isabel nor her grandfather ever truly believed it. The old man's health had failed in the aftermath, and the sprawling Rouse enterprises was besieged by internal and external threats. Isabella's uncles were circling the gesture like vultures. Forced to choose a helm in a crisis, Isabel needed a Julian by her side to stabilize the whirling grandfather and plot the old guard on the board. And I was a lucky bastard, or rather the two chosen for the job. I didn't have a choice. $3 million was the price of my sister's life. So, I sent down all my own edges, hid my personality, and squeezed myself into expensive custom-made sweets. I learned to drink the Blue Mountain coffee I hated and memorized Julian's favorite quotes from Nizzy. I became the shadow of another man. For a year, I accompanied Isabel to girls and fundraisers, playing the part of a devoted couple. She would link her arm through mine, navigating the glittering crowds with effortless grace. In the dead of night, she would slump onto her office sofa, exhausted, and have me read her financial reports. Once when I was fumbling through a golf lesson, she came up behind me, her hands closing over mine to adjust my swing. The warmth of her body seeped through a white shirt, making my heart skip a beat. I saw her rotors, decisive sight in the boardroom, and I saw her vulnerability after a few glasses of wine. Horace remit was red. She was a perfect employer, strictly professional outside of necessary public appearances, never crossing a line, and never discussing anything with me that didn't pertain to Julian. When she looked at me, her eyes were always distant, as if she were looking right through me to someone else. I never forgot him or I place. I was a fake, a shadow. So the moment Julian Kraft returned, I didn't hesitate. The man looked so much like me. It was uncanny. The second he appeared outside the Rouse Tower, he caused a media frenzy, which is called the war wound, which is ways where to be a hardship, but it is where exactly as Isabel he described it, full of warmth and sunlight. He claimed that Ben Bertin and avalanche entries could be a local shepherd, suffering from amnesia for 5 years. It only recently recovered his memory and had vowed his way back. The story was fantastical, but for Isabel, which is Richard was undoubtedly the best news in the world. Through the blinds of her office window, I watched her sprint out of the building and threw herself into Julian's arms. The sun beat Taram in a golden light, making Taram look like a painting. It was time for the shadow to disappear. I took the payment I was there, left behind a song note, and booked the first fly out. I was heading to a place where no one knew my name, ready to start over. I thought it was the most dignified to our arrangement. I never ever imagined the ending would be this. Me tied up and dragged it back by her. The private jet landed in Chicago. I was escorted back to the sprawling Lake Forest estate I had called home for a year. Isabel rented the rope from MY. Wrists shoved me onto the Plusova and stood over me. Her expression imperious. Leah, what is the vinyl clause of our contract state? She asked coldly. I frowned, trying to recall the fine print. The party of the first part, Isabel Rouse, reserves the right of final interpretation. It was the boilerplate satchel of every ironclad contract. I hadn't thought anything of it at that time. Good, you remember her, Isabel nodded. Now allow me to interpret it for you. The right to terminate this contract rests with me, not with Julian's return. I say it's not over. So it's not over. You will right now this instant go back to being Julian Kraft. I left a bitter angry sound. Miss Rouse, are you delusional? The real deal is back. Is right there in the flesh. What do you want to play act for? For it has been refit. You think he wants to see a man with HS on voice occupying his identity, sleeping in which he is? No, wait. Living in his house and pretending to be his fiance. My temper flirt and my words were least researched. Isabella's expression turned even colder. You don't need to worry about what he wants. You only need to follow my orders. No. I shot up from the sofa, confronting her with a defiance I had never shown before. Isabel, I am not your puppet. I have my own life, my own dignity. My sister's surgery was a success. She's on the road to recovery, and I don't need your money anymore. This ridiculous game is over. I'm done. I turned on my heel, ready to walk out. Stop. Isabella's voice came from behind me, treated with a barely perceptible tremor. My feet froze, but I didn't turn round. An eternity of silence stretched between us, so long that I thought she had finally given up. Then I heard her speak in a tone I'd never heard from her before. One of near pleading, of utter exhaustion. Leah, please, I'm asking you, help me one last time. My heart clenched. In the year I'd known her, I had never seen her so humbled. She was always proud, always encouragement, as if nothing in the world could ever break her. I slowly turned back. She was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the fading light of sunset silhouetting her slender frame, making her look profoundly lonely. WHY? I asked, what's going on? Isn't Julian's return what you wanted all this time? Isabel didn't answer my question. She just looked at me. Her eyes welling with red. In 3 days, it's my grandfather's 80th birthday gala. I need you to attend with me. As Julian and the real Julian. Where have you hidden him? Is in a very safe place, she said, evading the question. After the gala, our contract will be settled once and for all. You can go wherever you want, and I swear I won't stop you. Her gaze was a storm of complex emotions, a plea for help, a steady resolve, and a deep, sorrowful note I'd so indecisive. My own resolve after net. At the end of the day, she was just a 27-year-old woman forced to carry a corporate empire on her shoulders, fend away a pack of wolves in her own family, and care for an ailing grandfather. The Julian I portrayed was her only armor. Perhaps a sudden return had appended some crucial plan of hers. Fine, I heard myself say. Do it, see, but this is the last time. The tension in Isabella's body seemed to melt through. A faint, fleeting smile touched her lips. It vanished in an instant, but it was like a firework setting off a chain reaction deep inside my chest. Thank you, Leah. It was the first time she had ever said my real name with such genuine gravity. The next 2 days were deceptively calm. Isabel didn't mention Journal again, as if it never appeared. She simply handed me a new file detailing Julian's fabricated experiences about over the last 5 years. Memories is this, she recommended. Grandfather Villa's cohesions. I stared at the flawlessly crafted history, a sense of absurdity washing over me. The original was back, yet here I was, the standing, working over team to learn an updated script covering each spatial episodes. What on earth was Isabel planning? And where was the real Julian Craft? 1,000 questions swirled in my head, but I knew this wasn't the time to dig for the truth. All I could do was play my part in this final act. Marco Ross's 80 Berdi Gala was held at the old familiar state, a magnet for the cheetah's reality. Nearly every person of consequence in Chicago was there, dressed in a white to head of Isabel and a matching white evening gown on my arm. We looked like something out of a fairy tale. Julian, you are finally back. The patriarch, which is hair and beard snow white, was overwhelmed with emotion when he saw me from his ilker. Tears of joy streamed down his face as he gripped my hand, which his clouded is filled with the relief of having found what was lost. Grandfather, I'm back. I'm sorry I made you worry, I said, delivering my line with a perfect blend of post-traumatic relief and guilt. I could feel Isabella's hand tighten slightly on my arm. During the party, Isabella's uncles, Robert and Richard Rouse, took turns trying to probe for weaknesses. Julian, my boy, what have you been through these past 5 years? You must tell us all about it, Richard said, which is my last essay for us. Yes, you're all dying of curiosity. Robert chimed in while you were gone. Our dear Isabel was as grateful as a saint, turning down countless eligible young men for you. Their words were dripping with insinuation and ill intent. Remaining calm past, I recited the story Isabel had prepared for me, compelled with compelling emotion. From the Valencia and the rescue by a kind stranger to the subsequent amnesia and the arduous journey of rediscovering my identity, I spoke without a single misstep, painting a vivid and detailed picture. Mark Rouse in a detail long, which is gazigrank more affectionate by the second. Robert and Richard exchanged a look, unable to find a single crack in my story, and reluctantly fell silent. I knew my performance tonight was flawless. I had successfully helped Isabel stabilize her position, while sinking on with the sickness on her CEO to temporary retreat. Everyone knew that Julian was the patriarch's favorite, and as long as Julian was by her side, Isabella's power was absolute. Halfway through the gala, Isabel excused herself to the restroom, pulling me into an empty alcove. You did well, she murmured, a note of approval in her voice. Just part of the contract, I replied coolly. She studied me, her gaze deep and scribble. Leah, after the party, he transfers the rest of the money to your account along with the penalty fee for the breach. You don't need to pay a penalty. You're terminating the contract amicably. No, I'm the one who breached it. Isabel shook her head. I was wrong to force you to stay. Her sudden apology left me at a loss for words. I started to say something, but a sharp, piercing voice cut through the party's genital atmosphere. Is a fake. Is not Julian Craft at all. We snapped our heads towards the sound. A young man in a theater's uniform was pointing at me, shouting at the top of his lungs. In an instant, every in the room was fixed on me, and my stomach dropped like sharks smelling blood. Robert and Richard Rouse immediately rushed over. What are you talking about? Is not Julian. What proof do you have? The waiter fumbled in his pocket, pulled out a phone, and held it high, playing video. The footage was dark, clearly filmed in some kind of basement. A man who looked exactly like me was tied to a chair, with his mouth covered with duct tape. He was struggling violently. Muffled cries of MMP. MMP are escaping him, which is a swear word with terror and desperation. Though the video was blurry, everyone could see it. The man in the video and I hid the same voice. The room erupted. Oh my God, there are two of them. The one in the video must be the real one. Is being kidnapped. Then who? Who is this one? Seeing the video, the old patriarch began to tremble with rage. He pointed a shaking finger at me, with his lips quivering, unable to form a single word. You, who in God's name are you? Triumphant smiles spread across Robert and Richard's faces. They flanked me. Their eyes burning with menace. Well, Isabel, so you want an impostor to deceive your grandfather, to deceive all of us. Do you have any respect for this family? Talk. Or have you hidden the real during craft? The accusations, the doubt, the fury, it all crashed over me like a tidal wave. I was speechless. Instinctively, I looked to Isabel, desperate for an explanation. But her face showed no trace of panic. Instead, she looked relieved, calm. She walked to my side, faced the stunned crowd, and took my cold hand in hers. Then, she said something that turned me and everyone else in that room to stone. That's right. He isn't Julian. Is the man I love, Leah Vance. And my brain shut down. The man she loves. Leah Vance. Is she talking about me? It isn't possible. This was an act. It had to be. This was her desperate play to handle the crisis, trying me under the boss as a new kind of shield. I felt her hand gripping mine, her palms slick with sweat, a slight tremor running through it. But her gaze was firm, resolute, without a hint of jest. Isabel, have you lost your mind? Robert shrieked, practically jumping in place. Grandfather is right here. How do you admit to an affair with this impostor in front of everyone? What about Julian? Uncle Robert, I suggest you choose your words carefully. Isabella's voice was low, but it carried an authority that could not be challenged there. I say it here again. He is not an impostor. He is my fiance, Leah Vance, and I am proud to have him here. As for the Julian you are so concerned about, Horace flicked to the truth to a trend the man impersonate in the video. He is nothing more than a con artist trying to use a passing resemblance to swindle the Rouse family. What? And my mind spun even faster. She was calling the real Julian the fraud. What in the hell was going on? That's absurd. Richard Billade. Grandfather watched Julian grow up. It knew him in an instant. Is that so? Isabella's smile was glacial. She turned to the silent patriarch, her voice softening. Grandfather, do you remember her? Julian has a butterfly-shaped birthmark on his left shoulder. He got at you when he was a boy and fell out of a tree. You were the one who held him while the doctor pointed it out to you. The patriarch's eyes widened. It was an intensely private detail, something no outsider could possibly know. Isabella's gaze, sharp as a shard of glass, fell upon the weight. Now, why don't you go as the person who put you up to the spectacle with his shirt and show us all that birthmark? The actor's face went white. The phone cluttered from with his hand to the floor. The color drained from Robert and Richard's faces as well. A dead silence fell over the room. Everyone understood this wasn't some simple case of a mistaken identity. This was a meticulously planned conspiracy. Someone had vowed a look-alike to их посеми. They faked the gala, hoping to discredit Isabel and to weaken her grip on the company. But they had never calculated that Isabel would pull the rug out from under them. Not BY denying the accusation, but BY admitting as Julian and turning the tables, branding their man a fraud. And that birthmark, known only to a precious fool, was the fatal blow that shattered their lie. Seize him. Find out who's behind this. Isabel ordered the security guards. The actor's legs gave out and he crumpled to the floor. The crisis, it seemed, was over. I looked at Isabel beside me. She remained patient, as if everything was under her absolute control. But I knew it wasn't that simple. I didn't have a butterfly-shaped birthmark on my left shoulder either. If Robert and Richard had been which kitted and out the demand I took over my shirt right then and there, Isabel and I would have been ruined. She had been gambling. Gambling that they all endure, that their own guilt would make them hesitate. And she had won. But WHY would she do it? WHY now wants to the word that I was a man she loved. That went far beyond the scope of our contract. This performance was far too convincing. The shock of the evening was too much for the old man. He was taken to his room to rest, and the gala ended abruptly. The ride back to their state was stepped in silence. I tried to speak several times, but the words wouldn't come. I chased until the car glided to a stop that Isabel finally spoke. Her voice laced with exhaustion. Today must have been a lot for you. A lot that hasn't even begun to cover it. I go for a week, humorously. I feel like I just got out of the world's most terrific crowdcaster. My heart nearly beat out of my chest. Isabel, what are you thinking? The man in that video. Cut Julian. She interrupted me. Her voice flayed. I froze. What? He really is Julian 10. The birthmark I made up. And my entire world was shattered for the second time that night. She unjust publicly branded her long-lost love a fraud. She had set a coherent fabrication to nail him to a cross of shame. It was rotors. WHY. I was completely bewildered. WHY would you do that to him? Isn't he the one you the one I cherished and mourned? Isabel finished it for me, a self-deprecating smile twisting her lips. It was a smile full of bitterness and grief. Leah, the most deceitful things in this world are our own eyes. She turned her head, her gaze like ink with mine, deep and penetrating. Because the Julian Kraft who came back, she said, in which in every word, is from head to toe a complete and utter bastard. In her study, surrounded by shows of literature books, Isabel finally laid out the whole ugly truth. Julian's return ascended some heart-warming love. Story. It was a calculated, vicious blackmail attempt. Patches ago, he didn't disappear, she said. Her voice early come, as if recounting a story about strangers. He embezzled a fortune from a corporate project and ran off with a woman named Lisa. At that time, Rouse Enterprises was negotiating a major deal with an overseas consortium. That money was the initial capital, a massive sum. Julian, as one of the project leads, who set it as position to divert the funds into a secret offshore account to cover his tracks. He started a mountaineering accident. I was floored. This was more dramatic than any soap opera. The man she described as warm, gentle, and perfect. Her idealized lost love was a community hot abandoned her for another woman. 10 WHY didn't you go to the police? WHY did you keep telling everyone he was just missing? Because of my grandfather. Her race rent, which his health was already fragile back then. He loved that Julian like his own grandson. If he learned the truth, the shock would have killed him. On top of that, if word got out that the project funds were stolen, our stock would have plummeted. We would have faced bankruptcy. So, she chose to hide it. She shouldered the entire burden herself. She announced Julian was missing, who set for money to replace the stolen funds, and Soviet bought the project and the company. For past years, she had put up a teetering family empire while living a lie, preserving Julian's perfect image for the sake of her family. And I was assured that she had carefully selected to give her grandfather peace of mind and silence the gossip. The bindle you gave me, the one about Julian. Auf Rutgers, she said with a bitter smile. The good parts were real. I didn't want to let those beautiful memories become so ugly. I finally understood. It isn't that she had stopped loving him. It was that he had wounded her so deeply. She had no choice but to bury that love. That it wasn't a training manual for me. It was a eulogy for foreign lost youth. So it is returned now. He and that woman burned through the money overseas. Life got hard. So he decided to come back. Isabella's expression turned to ice. He thought I was still the naive young girl he could manipulate. He thought all he had to do was show up and it will welcome him back with open arms. He contacted me and demanded $100 of million in hush money. If I refused, it possessed the whole scandal and ruined the Rouse family name. I soaked in a sharp breath. The shamelessness was breathtaking. So, you played along? I said. The pieces clicking into place. You pretended to agree to keep him calm, while you waited for the right moment, a moment to utterly destroy his reputation and ensure he could never recover. Isabel nodded. He was arrogant. He thought as long as he held the past over my head, I wouldn't touch him. So he conspired with my uncles to stage that scene at the gala, thinking he could back me into a coon. He never imagined that was the very day we've been waiting for. You want to send him to prison? No. She shook her head, a flash of venom in her eyes. That's too easy. I want him to be branded a fraud, to be despised by everyone. I want him to know that the way is so proud of his heir to me now. And you, she looked at me. You are the one I am willing to stand beside, openly in front of the entire world. I knew that last part was just a line. A strategic move should made at the gala. But hearing her say it here again here and now, and my heart still hemmed against my ribs. So, Ats, you a plan now. Am I on cross on give up. Say right to verify Julian's identity. They won't get the chance. A cold smear played on her lips. Ivy already had him escorted out of the country. A fly that left her night. Destination, somewhat our nation in Evrik. I give him no money to live out which he is days there. As for my uncles, we taught a body, all their accusations are just empty words. Clean, efficient, vinyl. That was the real Isabel Rouse. I looked at her, a strong mix of emotions churning inside me. Pity, admiration, and something else. Something that felt dangerously like love. And me. I asked so swiftly. And my mission should be complete now. Right. Silence fell in the study. Isabel looked at me. Her gaze comported. Yes, she finally said after a long moment. You can't go. The money will be in your account by morning. This was the ending we've been waiting for. Freedom, a new life. So WHY, when the moment finally arrived there, did my heart feel so hollow? It isn't. I was reluctant to leave. Reluctant to leave this woman who was as hard as ice on the surface, but whose heart was a fragile, tender thing. Okay, I nodded, pushing myself to my feet. I tried to keep my voice steady. Well, Miss Rouse, take care. I turned and walked towards the door, is she feeling heavy and unreal, as if I were walking on clouds. Just as my hand reached for the door knob, her voice came from behind me again. Leah. I stopped, but I didn't turn back. That line, is the man I love. It isn't entirely an act. Her voice was as light as a feather, but it lingered on my heart with the fires of a bolt. I practically fled the Rouse estate. Isabella's vine lures were a stone tossed into the placid lake of my mind, sending shockwaves through my entire being, not entirely an act. How much of that was truth and how much was fiction? I didn't dare to think about it. I didn't want to. We were from two different worlds. She was a queen in her castle, and I was just a kid from the wrong side of the tracks who slay a year of his life for a paycheck. The first rule of being a standing is that when the show's over, you outcry. No miss and entanglements. I received a zero-wire transfer. IT was far more than the protector moment, a sum large enough for me and me to lie comfortably for the rest of our lives. I kept my promise to her, and we moved to a beautiful, quiet city in the south, Asheville, North Carolina. I bought a small house with a yard under careful medical supervision. Mia's health improved dramatically. The color returned to her cheeks. I found a simple David Defis to Defis job. In my free time, I planted flowers in the yard and went for walks with my sister. Life was placid. I an undisturbed pool of water. I delivered a teller by detailed news from Chicago, from Rouse Enterprises, from Isabel. I thought that if I just stopped thinking about her, that absurd year of my life would fade with time, eventually becoming a distant memory. I was wrong. Some people, some things, once they get into your heart, can never be erased. It jolted awake from a dream, her cool, elegant ways flashing in my mind. It touched a certain kind of cough and remember it was her favorite. It even glanced at the cover of a business magazine and subconsciously scanned the headlines for a familiar company name. I had to admit I was a gunner. I had fallen in love with my former boss. The realization filled me with a sense of panic and helplessness. Life went on like that, quiet and unremarkable for 6 months. One afternoon, I was in the yard fertilizing a new rosy bush when Mia ran out, holding her phone. Leah, look, isn't this your old boss? My heart seized. I took the phone. The screen showed a news alert. The headline stark and brutal. Rouse Enterprises in crisis. CEO Isabel Rouse indicted for corporate fraud. Faces prison time. The accompanying photo was of Isabel leaving a courthouse. She was dressed in a power suite, but her face was gaunt and pale. Her expression defiant as a map reporter surrounded her. My chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. The pain was sharp, suffocating. How could this have happened? I immediately tapped the link. The article explained that the fraudulent Julian, who had been annihilated by Rouse Enterprises 6 months prior, had suddenly returned, backed by significant power. He presented a mountain of ironclad evidence, proving he was a real Julian Craft, and that Isabel had orchestrated the entire effort to steal the fortune that was rightfully his. This evidence included old photos of him with Mark Rouse, his colleagues, and there were a cleverly edited audio recording of Erbel seemingly admitting to framing him. The most damning piece of evidence was a star witness, Lisa, the woman he had run away with. On the stand, she gave a cheerful, compelling performance, claiming Isabel had paid for to stage the ill payment, driven by Josiah over her relationship with Julian. The truth had been twisted. Black turned to white. Public opinion flipped overnight. Isabel went from being a victim to a manipulative, vindictive woman who would stop at nothing to secure her power. And the real villain, Julian, was now painted as the wrong party. The perfect victim who had been betrayed and framed, winning universal sympathy. Robert and Richard Rouse had seized the opportunity, leading a boardroom to oust Isabel and trying their full support behind Julian. Rouse Enterprises stock hit nosedive. The company was on the brink of collapse. I started the news, and my hands and feet turning to ice. Julian, that son of he was back and he unjust returned. He laid a vicious, elaborate trap to utterly destroy Isabel. And Isabel, how could she possibly waste all of this alone? Leah, what's wrong? You look pale, may I ask? Her voice filled with concern. I snap back to reality, dropping my gardening tools. Mia, book me a flight to Chicago. The fastest one you can find. Leah, you're going back. Yes, my gaze was unwavering. I can't let her raise this alone. A year ago, I became her shadow for money. Today, I would become her sword for love. I would shatter this web of lies and filth. This time, it isn't about a contract. It was because I loved her. Returning to Chicago felt like stepping into another lifetime. The cheetah's glitz and glamour were the same, but all I felt was a beating, hostile cold. The first person I called was Sarah Jenkins, Isabella's assistant. Her voice on the phone was rigid and exhausted. We met at a coffee shop. Mr. Vance, what are you doing back here? Sarah looked shocked to see me. How is she? How's Isabel? I cut straight to the point. Sarah's face immediately filled with tears. Not good. She lost the lawsuit and the board vows her out. When her grandfather found out the truth, he hit a massive stroke. He's still in the hospital. It's touch and go. And Julian, that monster, is acting CEO of Rouse Enterprises now. Every word was a knife twisting in my heart. The evidence, I asked. Julian's proof is all forged there. Can anyone see that? It's no use, Sarah said, shaking her head in despair. He was too well prepared. The audio recording was a deep fake. But it's flawless. The best forensic experts saw proof it was fabricated. As for Lisa, she was bought and paid for a long time ago. We can't find a single piece of evidence to counter their story. Miss Rouse, she can't even go back to their state. Julian had her thrown out. Where is she now? In an apartment on the outskirts of the city, a small place about years ago. I got the address and drove there immediately. It was a plain old apartment building, a university from the magnificent estate in Lake Forest she once called home. I knocked for a long time before a hoarse voice finally answered from within. Who is it? It's me, Leah. The voice inside fell silent. A few moments later, the door creaked open a few inches. I saw Isabel. She had lost so much weight. Her eyes were sunken. Her face as pale as a sheet of paper. A dead, defeated energy clung to her. She looked nothing like the vibrant, commanding queen she had once been. Seeing her like this, my heart shattered into a million pieces. She seemed stunned to see me. A flicker of surprise in her eyes that was quickly extinguished and replaced by a dull emptiness. What are you doing here? She asked flatly, her tone designed to keep me at a distance. Are you here to let me? I'm here to help you. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was a mess. The curtains were drawn and they rustic with the smell of stale alcohol. Help me. Isabel let out a short, sharply, as if I told the phonist joking the word. How can you help me? Leah, have you forgotten who you are? You're a nobody now. Get out of here. I don't want to see you again. She tried to shoot the door. I blocked it with my body, and my gaze locked on hers. Isabel, look at me. I forced her to make my eyes. 6 months ago, you asked if I was scared. I'm telling you now, I wasn't scared. I was just furious with myself for being so stupid, for not staying to help you. And I hate myself for being so silly that I let you suffer through this alone. And my voice trembled with emotion. Isabel stared at me, her eyes slowly filling with tears. I'm back now, I said, taking a deep breath. and him not leaving her again. Whatever comes next, whether it's hill or high water, him with you. Her defenses finally crumbled like a lost, helpless child. She threw herself into my arms and began to sob. All the pain of grief, injustice, and despair of the past months pouring out of her. I held her tightly, letting her tears suck my shoulder. I'm so sorry, she whispered over and over into my chest. I'm the one who should be sorry, I murmured, gently stroking her back. And my voice was soft but firm. Isabel, trust me, I will help you take back everything that belongs to you. From this day forward, Leah once was officially at war with Julian Kraft, but it would take more than righteous anger to bring Julian down. I needed evidence, hard, irrefutable proof that would destroy him for good. After her emotional release, Isabel became much calmer. She told me everything that had happened. Julian's rapid resurgence was backed by a player, a foreign investment firm called Stanol Capital. Stanol had provided Julian with a vast supply of cash and connections, helping him forge evidence, bribe witnesses, and manipulate the media. What do you know about Stanol Capital? I asked, sensing this was our best lead. Almost nothing, Isabel said, shaking her head. Here, a ghost. Their methods are incredibly aggressive. I looked into them, but all I could find was a registration. In the Cayman Islands. It's impossible to know who's really pulling the strings. WHO are doing here helping Julian profit. Isabella say glinted with a spark of her old brilliance. I suspect their real target is Rouse Enterprises itself. Julian is just a pound heavy pushed onto the board. The hunter hiding behind the hunting dog, I said, understanding her meaning. If that were true, Julian was in a precarious position himself. The moment Stanol devoured Rouse Enterprises, their puppet CEO would be the first to be discarded. Our enemy isn't just Julian. IT was a much larger, more dangerous shadow. The situation was getting more complicated by the minute. Right now, the most critical thing is to find Lisa. Isabel said she's the only human witness in this case. If we can't get her to leap, we have a chance to turn this round. Where is she? She vanished after the trial. Julian has her well hidden. Even the best hiding place left a trial. I reasoned. She's a woman who loves luxury. She won't be content staying quiet for long. If we watch closely, you find her. In the days that followed, I used every contact and resource I had to track down Lisa. At the same time, I started digging into Stanol Capital. Isabel, meanwhile, pulled herself together. She began reaching out to the old company loyalists, the ones who had been devoted to her and her grandfather, trying to rally support within the board. We were two engines running at full speed with a single clear objective. That's were stacked against us, but neither of us was ready to give up. During those difficult days, we lived in that tiny apartment, eating instant noodles, staying up all night analyzing the case, and watching the sunrise from the rooftop. Our hearts had never been closer. The employer and substitute dynamic was gone. The financial contract right. We were just two souls winding warmed in each other, fighting side by side. One night, as we were pouring over a mountain of documents, Isabel suddenly spoke. Leah, do you regret IT? Regret what? Coming back to this message. You could have had a quiet, peaceful life. I put down the fillet I was holding and took her hand. And my only regret is not coming back soon. I looked into her eyes, and my voice filled with sincerity. Isabel, I love you. Not Leah Vance playing Julian Kraft. Just me. Leah Vance. Loving you. Isabel Rouse. IT was the first time I had ever said IT so plainly. A beautiful blush spread across her cheeks. She leaned in and pressed a soft, gentle kiss on my lips. Me, too. The moonlight streamed through the window, betting as in its soft glow. In that moment, I felt that even if the putter had let into a bottomless abyss, I wouldn't be afraid. A week later, we finally got a break. A friend of mine, a private investigator, located Lisa. During it set her up in a luxury hotel in Milwaukee where she was living a life of extravagant excess. I didn't want to spook her. I chose a more direct and far riskier approach. I was going to see her myself, and I was going to make her want to help us. I went to her hotel alone. I found her in a lobby cafe, impeccably dressed in designer clothes. Her makeup flowers. She looked like she was on top of the world. Who are you? She asked, her eyes narrowing with a suspicion as she took in my face Julian's face. Who I am, the isn't matter. I sat down opposite her and slid a fillet across the table. What matters is that I can give you what you really want. The fillet contains some internal documents on Stanol Capital. managed that to get my hands on. They ain't top-level secrets, but they were enough to show her the bigger picture. Lisa picked up the filet. Her expression skeptical. Assured, her voice began to change. What is the super said to mean? I Timens I sat leaning back in my chair and watching her cool that you think during is you a night in shining armor. Don't be a fool. You ain't here about just pounds to know is to sing to swallow house enterprises. The second the company is theirs. You two will be the first pieces of trash they threw away. You're lying. Lisa's voice was sharp with emotion. Jordan loves me. He promised to marry me after he took back the company. Marry you. I live the Colt McKing sound. A man who would abandon his childhood sweetheart for money. A man who would try to destroy the woman he once loved just for living. Do you really think a man with that kind of character is worth betting you alive on? Lisa, you're a smart woman. You know how stupid it is to pin your hopes on a man like that. My word struck her like a hammer. Her face pout. I knew she was wavering. I press my advantage. Help us testify in court. Tell the truth. When this is over, Israel will give you some of money large enough to live comfortably in any country you choose. Furthermore, she uses your connections to get you a new identity, a clean slate, a chance to start over. I paused, looking my eyes on hers, and my voice was serious. You have one chance. You can stay on the sinking ship with Jordan, or you can climb onto our lifeboat. The choice is yours. I stood up, leaving my contact information on the table. I gave you 24 hours to think about IT. After I left, Lisa sat in the cafe for a very long time. I know I had only because what I owed her wasn't some empty promise of love. IT was tangible real-world security and freedom. For a woman like Lisa, that was far more valuable. Sure enough, the next morning, my phone rang. I mean, we hit our trump card. With Lisa as our star witness, we immediately filed an appeal. On the day of the hearing, Julian's face was a mask of cold fury. When Lisa took the stand and one by one laid bare all of Age's dirty secrets, how he had bribed her, how he had forged the evidence, the courtroom erupted. The media narrative flipped again, this time for good. Jordan went from being the perfect victim back to being the despicable con-man and criminal he truly was. This time, there would be no comeback. The court overturned the original verdict on the spot, restoring Isabella's name and all her positions at Rouse Enterprises. Jordan was arrested in the courtroom for fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. A long prison sentence awaited him. As we walked out of the courthouse, the sunlight was so bright that it was almost blinding. Isabel squeezed my hand. Her eyes red whiskers, but her lips were curved in a smile. We had won. But before we even had a chance to celebrate, an even greater crisis loomed. The day after Julian's arrest, Stanul Capital launched a hostile takeover of Rouse Enterprises. Seeing the shares they had quietly accumulated at rock bottom prices when they were driving the company into the ground, combined with shares bought from small stakeholders, their ownership percentage was now dangerously close to Isabel's. They were the second largest shareholder. Their true objective was finally revealed to Jeff the company whole. A brutal battle for control of Rouse Enterprises had begun. Isabel called an emergency board meeting, trying to rally. Every lie she had to fend off the takeover. But Stanel's assault was relentless, and their financial resources were far greater than we had imagined. We were losing ground, pushed to the very edge of a cliff. At our most desperate moment, Mark Rouse woke up. His body was still weak, but his mind was sharp and clear. He learned everything that had happened. He didn't blame Isabel. He only let out a long, weary sigh. Isabel, you did the right thing. Then he made a decision that shocked everyone. He announced that he was transferring all of his shares in Rouse Enterprises, his controlling stake to me, to Leah Vance. The news was a bombshell that rocked the entire Chicago business world. I, a virtual unknown, had become the majority shareholder of Rouse Enterprises overnight. Robert and Richard Rouse nearly hit a new SMS. Stanul's appetite takeover plan was dead in the wild. With my shares combined with Isabella's, we held an unanswerable majority. They hit no path forward. The crisis was averted in the most unexpected way imaginable. In the private hospital room, I met with the patriarch. He looked at me, which is gazy full of Karen Perk's emotions. "My boy, he said, with his voice raspy. You've been through too much for this family. Grandfather, please don't say that. You've made many mistakes in my life, the old man sighed. But my greatest was trusting that animal, Julian. I pinned all my hopes on him, the patriarch continued, and I failed to see that the one person who could truly lead this family, the one who could give Isabel happiness, was right in front of me all along. H.S. Gaza shifted to Isabel, full of love and regret. It was my foolishness. Grandfather was confused. I almost destroyed you, and I almost destroyed this family. Grandfather, it's all in the past now, Isabel said, taking Udi's hint after stream silently down her voice. Yes, all in the past. He did relieve it. Then he looked at me, which is их пресион салом. Leah, I'm interested in the Rouse family. And Isabel. To you, can you promise me that you will always take care of her? I looked at Isabel, who was looking back at me. Her is glistening. I nodded firmly, making the promise of a lifetime. I swore. After the battle for control ended, Rouse Enterprises quickly stabilized. With my full support as a majority shareholder, Isabel initiated a series of sweeping reforms, cleaning house of all the parasites who had plagued the company for years, including her two uncles. Rouse Enterprises was reborn. Everything seemed to have settled into a perfect happy ending. And yet, a mystery still nodded at me. Who was really behind the enigmatic Stanol capital? I got to such elaborate lengths. First begging Julian and then launching a hostile takeover. There had to be a deep reason. Mike told me this isn't really over. By chance, while organizing some of Marco Ross's old belongings, I came across a dusty, forgotten photograph. In it, three young men were smiling, their faces bright with optimism. One was a young Marco Rouse. The second was a man I didn't recognize. And the third, when I saw his face, I felt a jolt as if struck by lightning. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The man was Jonathan Kraft, Julian Srough's father. As far as I know, Jonathan Kraft had yet in an accident when Julian was just a boy. It was one of the reasons Marco had always treated Julian like his own grandson. But in this photograph, he and Marco were clearly peers, close friends. A massive thriving theory began to form in my mind. I took the photo and went straight to Isabel. When she saw it, she was just stunned. What is this? I don't think you'll answer. Father is dead, I said, and why was the RY? And I think the real man behind Stanol capital is him, Jonathan Kraft. The theory was horrifying, but it was the only one that explained everything. He's doing AT for living. Isabel realized it instantly, her face draining of color. He believes the Rouse family wronged him. So, he planned all of this. He sent HS on son as the first wave. And when that failed, he stepped in himself to Tiara and destroyed Skyrim completely. This was the truth. The ultimate conspiracy hidden in the deepest shadows. Julian had been a pawn from the very beginning. A piece in HS what cares when full game. Whether he succeeded or failed was irrelevant. The real hunter had been lying in with the entire time, ready to deal the killing blow, and we had almost yet from that final streak. If Marco hadn't made the decisive move to transfer HS shares to me, Rouse Enterprises would already be a memory. Will he give up? Isabella's voice trembled slightly. No. I shook my head, a cold light in my eyes. A snake like that, hiding in the dark, will always be ready to strike here again. Then what do? We drag him out of witch's hole, I said, staring out the window. And then we end this for good. I laid out my plan for Isabel. It was incredibly risky, almost like setting ourselves on fire to lure him out. But it was the only way to virus Jonathan Kraft to show his hint. Isabel listened, silent for a long time. Finally, she looked at me, her gaze unwavering. Okay, we do it your way. 3 days later, Rouse Enterprises held a press conference and announced a piece of news that shocked the world. I, Leah Vance, was reasoning from all my positions at Rouse Enterprises and transferring my entire majority stake free of shares. The recipient of those shares was Julian Kraft. The announcement caused an uproar. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. Isabel was dragged through the mud with countless people calling her a foolish, love-struck idiot for agreeing to such a ludicrous decision. Only we knew the truth. We were playing a dangerous game of chess. We were betting on Jonathan's soft greed and arrogance. I made a public statement claiming I was doing it out of guilty conscience, that I believed the Kraft family deserved a stake in a company, and I was simply returning what was rightfully theirs. To make the performance even more convincing, I personally arranged the 4 Julians release from prison on some passionati grounds, and in front of the entire press corps, indagit in edizione of historic proportions. Julian looked at me, which is expressione mixture of confusion, resentment, and the smuggilit of a potty man who thinks is van. He probably thought I was some kind of moral fool. He had no idea he was just a bait viewer who seemed to catch a much bigger fish. And sure enough, after we had displayed sufficient sincerity, Jonathan Kraft finally emerged there, identifying himself as the president of Stanopita Sapachivich Division. He contacted us, requesting a meeting with me and Isabel to discuss the future of Rouse Enterprises. The fish had taken a bait. We met him in the top floor boardroom of the Rouse Tower. The man behind it all, he looked to be in his late 50s, well preserved, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, the very picture of a refined businessman. But behind those lenses, each is as sharp and predator as a hawk's. He saw me and Isabel standing behind me and offered a victor smile. Vance, Miss Rouse, a pleasure. I never thought yet met under these circumstances. Kraft, the feeling is mutual. I replied evenly. Vance, your integrity is truly admirable, Jonathan said with full sincerity. My son was foolish and caused you a great deal of trouble. On his behalf, I apologize. An apology is unnecessary. Isabella's voice was as cold as ice. We only came here today to ask you one question. Kraft, why did you figure on this all 2 years ago? The smile on Jonathan Thrope's face froze for a fraction of a second before he compassed himself. Miss Razi, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. You don't. I slid the old photograph across the polished table. Then I suppose you won't recognize the sitter. Seeing the photo, Jonathan's compass finally cricket. His face changed there. How did you find this? The truth has a way of coming out, I said with a cold smile. Jonathan, stop the act. You were benchmarking for decades, haven't you? Altogether even before you were on fairs. Realizing his cover was blown, Jonathan finally tore out the mask. His face twisting into a snarl of pure hatred. That's right, it was all me, he spat, his voice thick with venom. Decades ago, if that old bastard Mark Rouse hadn't put his funding at the last second, I would have built an empire. He destroyed everything I had. He ruined me. So, I vowed to ruin everything he cherished. It's called poetic justice. So, you planned all of this. Isabel challenged him. You said you own son as canon father. Send him to get close to me to TRI and soon drill my family out of its lips. Higher, that to sell his brat. He creates more problems than he solves. Jonathan is held not a shred of paternal love, only contempt. I thought he could see the company cleanly, but then you two had to get in their way. But I see that doesn't matter. In the end, Rouse Enterprises still fell into MOI hands. He burst into a triumphant laughter, a old pathological sound that caught in the sterile room. Is that so? I watched him slowly raising a small digital recorder he'd been holding because of a reporter in the city just heard every single word of that. At that exact moment, the boardroom doors were thrown open. A float of reporters surged in. A forest of cameras and microphones aimed at us. The flashes of their cameras turning the room into a strapping, chaotic spectacle. Jonathan Thrope's left to the in Uji's throat. He stared in horror at the scene before him, the blood draining from Uji's face. You set me up. Torn about is fair play, I said calmly. I believe the phrase is hoisted by you on partart. The meeting from the very beginning had been a live broadcast streamed across the nation. Jonathan's confession, Ichi's ugly, vengeful motives, his entire insane plan. It was all out there for the world to see. He was finished. What rated him wasn't just the judgment of the law, but the ruin of his name and reputation. The police arrived a moments later and later with the agency Jonathan Kraft. The farce was finally over. A void that had spent nearly a year, a conspiracy that had crossed to generations, had at last come to an end. Sunlight poured through the massive windows, filling the boardroom with a bright, warm glow. I turned and saw Isabel watching me. Her eyes were shining with tears, with relief, with gratitude, but most of all, with a laugh so provinent it seemed to overflow. I walked to her and pulled her into my arms. It's over, I said. Yes, she whispered. It's over. She rose on her toes and kissed me. Then she smiled. It was the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. There was no ice in it, no pretense, no exhaustion or defensiveness. It was a smile that came from her very soul, as brilliant as a summer flower, as warm as the spring sun. I knew that in that moment, she wasn't just saying goodbye to Juran, or such a one they got Rui. She was closing the door on the dark, heavy path that had imprisoned her for so long. From now on, her life would be filled with nothing but sunlight.